There is nothing as symbolic as a door. It shuts to protect you and opens to give you much more. Everyone wants to succeed, not just count pennies. When life gets tough, I remember a few things. Difficulty and struggles are part of what life brings. Your strength comes from the support around you. A true friend believes in what you do, there to hold your hand through any weather. I found my partner, and we walked through doors together.
Diamond, your bank.
Hello and welcome to Arise News. I'm Folake Adesugba in Nigeria's capital Abuja. This is Arise News Now. Our top stories: reunited families from both North and South Korea meet for the first time since the Korean War. Plus, the UN pays tribute to Kofi Annan, the man who spent his life working for the good of humanity. And rallying again, shares in electric car maker Tesla reversed course after spending most of the session in the red. And flying high above the rest, the Eagles' greatest hit album overtakes Michael Jackson's Thriller to become history's best-selling album of all time. We begin on the Korean Peninsula, where for 7 decades, thousands of families torn apart by the Korean War have been able to meet. Well, earlier, a lucky few were reunited, 89 South Koreans making the journey north to the Diamond Mountain Resort, where for a few hours they've been meeting loved ones in a series of highly emotional reunions. The brief encounters are the first official family meetings to be held for 3 years and reflect a thaw in political tensions between the two Koreas. Amid a diplomatic push to resolve a standoff over North Korea's nuclear weapons program. The Korean conflict ended in 1953. The peninsula was divided, of course, and communications banned between the two sides, as Arise chief correspondent John Cookson explains.
Yes, in a sense, Charles, and just one other thing I'll quickly add to the reply to the first question. Once they've met, you don't get a second chance. You only get one application to meet a family relative, and when that happens, you don't get another chance to apply for another meeting. But you're absolutely right. Things seem to be pretty much on course after that groundbreaking announcement from the leader of North Korea on New Year's Eve that the North Koreans wanted to take part in the Winter Olympics, a move that absolutely stunned the world. The Winter Olympics, of course, taking place in Seoul, and the North Koreans said that they wanted to send a team, and indeed they did, and they marched in the stadium together as one country. And since then, there have been meetings between the North and South Korean leaders, 2 in fact, one in April and one in May, and another one is due sometime mid-September, when President Moon of the South will go to Pyongyang for a meeting with his opposite number, Kim Jong-un, and also be very much in a sort of public profile. There have been meetings between North and South Korean officials at the so-called peace camp on the border, and also military chiefs met recently. So on the surface, at least, Charles, things seem to be going in the right direction in terms of rapprochement between North and South Korea. Then, of course, was the big one, and maybe you're going to ask me about that now, and that was Donald Trump's historic meeting on June the 12th. Charles?
Over now to the United States, where President Donald Trump has called on the country to support his immigration plans and efforts to build a wall along the Mexico border. The American leader said his nation is spending billions protecting other countries' borders instead of protecting its own people. His call came just hours after he hit back at criticism that he could be accused of obstruction of justice over his statements on the ongoing probe into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Mr. Trump's campaign and Moscow have both denied any collusion.
We will never surrender our nation to the forces of anarchy and chaos and crime. We will not allow our communities to be consumed by deadly poisons and violent predators. The poisons are flowing across our border, and we're hitting it from every angle. But we need new laws. We need border laws. We need immigration laws. We need them fast. We're going to get them. Hopefully the midterms will help toward that end. The fact is, people respect law and order, and they love our law enforcement. And I think we're going to have much more of a red wave than what you're going to see as a phony blue wave. Blue wave means crime. It means open borders. Not good. We will not stand for the vile smears, the hateful attacks, and the vicious assaults on the courageous men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement. We will protect those who protect us. The extremists who attack ICE and CBC like to portray themselves as champions of social justice. They are not. But their radical policies are the ultimate injustice, hurting innocent Americans and spilling innocent blood. People are dying because of their either lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, or just plain stupidity.
Meanwhile, former White House advisor Steve Bannon has called on Republicans to rally behind President Trump if they are to avoid defeat in the midterm elections. Bannon plans to use his new group, Citizens of the American Republic, to make that pitch, saying Democrats are focused on the impeachment of Donald Trump. He said that if the elections were held today, he believed the GOP would lose 35 to 40 seats in the House of Representatives, but argued there was time to turn that around. And for more on what's happening across the Atlantic, my colleague Charles Anyangolu crossed over to the U.S. Capitol earlier and spoke to Rise Chief Washington correspondent Eric Ham. He began by asking him about the political response to Bannon's warning.
An attempted comeback by Steve Bannon to try to not only rally the troops to get behind Donald Trump, but also to ensure that the Republicans actually maintain survival, because it is looking as though it could be a major onslaught of Republicans that will lose their seats heading into November.
And is he right, Eric, that an invigorated Democratic base poses a major challenge to the Republicans, particularly after a bullish performance in a series of special elections?
Charles, just last week we saw President Trump actually suggest that there was going to be a red wave, that for the first time in more than a decade, that you would see the president in power, the party in powers, pick up seats in a midterm election. Well, now it looks as though that will not happen. Democrats are not only invigorated and energized, but they are outspending Republicans, and they are beating them at the money race. Right now, there are many seats where you see incumbents, Republican incumbents, who are struggling to try to keep up with their Democratic counterparts. In fact, look no further than in Texas, deep red Texas, where Ted Cruz, who ran for president in 2016, is struggling to try to keep up in the money race with his Democratic challenger. And many believe that is a seat that perhaps now, for the first time in quite some time, Democrats could actually take Texas.
Well, given that the midterms are just about 90 days away, we're going to have to keep an eye on that one and see how it goes. But let's talk about Omarosa Manigault Newman, Donald Trump's apprentice turned nemesis, as one newspaper put it. She is, of course, continuing to torment the White House with claims of secret tapes. What's the latest in her arsenal of surreptitiously recorded private conversations?
Charles, she is continuing to actually release these tapes. She is continuing her tour across the media airwaves, speaking out about the president, and not only the president, but the inner workings of the White House, as well as the inner workings of the Trump family and the Trump dynamic. So this is continuing, I think, to gnaw at the president. It's continuing to raise his ire. And we are seeing Omarosa Manigault-Newman actually beat the president at his own game in terms of being able to not only beat him in terms of being able to showcase what she has, but it's being very detrimental to how this president has been attempting to try to change the narrative. And clearly, Omarosa Manigault-Newman learned from the best, and she's beating Trump, and she's beating him handily.
I think you actually reminded me, Eric, of an Arise News town hall discussion in 2015 in which Omarosa took part.
That's right.
You were, of course, a panelist. I hosted that program. How times have changed. Well, let's talk about what appears to be a new outcry over President Trump's revocation of former CIA Director John Brennan's security clearance. Tell us more about that latest wave of outcries.
Well, we saw the president on a Twitter tirade, as he is normally wont to do. Not only has he gone after former CIA Director John Brennan, and it's important for the viewers to know this, former CIA Director John Brennan was instrumental in the planning and operation that led to the assassination of Osama bin Laden. And so now here it is, fast forward more than a decade later, and now John Brennan is on the outs. And the president is not just stopping there. In fact, today he is calling for Jeff Sessions, the U.S. Attorney General, to revoke the security clearance of Bruce Orr, a current member of the Department of Justice, because we do know that this gentleman was part of the team that put together that dossier, that Michael Steele put together, that famous dossier on the president. So clearly the president has an enemies list, and he is going after those enemies one by one, name by name.
All right, Chief Washington correspondent Eric Ham there, talking to my colleague Charles Enyaguli earlier on. Now, time for a short break now, but more ahead, including at least 11 people killed in a shootout between troops and criminal suspects in a Brazil favela. Stay with us.
We are 198 million productive people with over 900,000 square kilometers of fertile land. Nigeria's banking system has emerged strong and resilient from the 2016 crisis, which has enhanced our productivity in agribusiness and manufacturing. Come, invest in Nigeria's agribusiness, manufacturing, and value-added mining. Enjoy the Central Bank of Nigeria-led initiatives in funding interventions, stabilized exchange rate, friendly capital repatriation regime, and many more. The Central Bank of Nigeria's robust monetary policy and interventions under President Buhari's administration and position the economy to target and attain a GDP growth of 6% with a strong and growing external reserves. Come, invest in Nigeria. Nigeria, ready for business.
There's an old saying in Nigeria, a single tree cannot make a forest. At First Bank, we started from humble beginnings, and with prudent management and bold acquisitions, we have grown to meet the needs of our customers throughout Nigeria and beyond. You first, First Bank.
Welcome back to Rise News Now. We're live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, and I'm Folake Adesugba. Now, Muslim pilgrims from around the world have gathered in the valley of Mount Arafat in Saudi Arabia for a day of prayer that marks the pinnacle of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Now, some 2 million pilgrims packed shoulder to shoulder for an emotional day of repentance and supplication. It was on this day, some 1,400 years ago, that Islam's Prophet Muhammad is said to have delivered his final sermon from Mount Arafat during the Hajj, calling for equality and for Muslims to unite. Muslims believe prayer on this day at Mount Arafat, about 20 kilometers east of Mecca, is their best chance to erase past sins and start anew. Now, as you know, the former Secretary General and Nobel Peace Prize winner Kofi Annan passed away over the weekend. Mr. Annan died after a short illness. Mr. Annan died after a short illness in Switzerland on Saturday at the age of 80. He was born in Kumasi in the Ashanti region of Ghana, and his country has declared a week of national mourning in his memory. Tributes have been paid to at the United Nations, where he spent most of his working life. And in India, nearly 1 million people are now believed to have been displaced, and over 350 have died in the worst flooding in a century in the country's Kerala state. Floods and landslides have caused homes and bridges collapse in the picturesque state, known for its quiet tropical backwaters and beautiful beaches. Thousands of rescuers are continuing efforts to reach out to stranded people and get relief supplies to isolated areas by hundreds of boats and nearly 24 helicopters. An estimated 800,000 people have taken shelter in some 4,000 relief camps across Kerala. Officials have predicted more rains across the state over the next few hours. And authorities in Brazil say at least 11 people have been killed during shootouts involving army troops and police in different parts of Rio de Janeiro. The country's military spokesman, Carlos Sinei, said 5 suspects were killed and another 10 were arrested earlier today when soldiers stormed the favela neighborhoods of Mare, Complexo do Alemão and Pena. Witnesses said officers also seized weapons and marijuana during the operations. Rio is the city that hosted the 2016 Summer Olympics, but has been struggling to curb a spike in violence. In February, the government deployed the military to take charge of security in the state. And police in Barcelona say they have shot and killed a man who attacked officers with a knife at a police station in the Spanish city. Officials say the attack happened early this morning in the Cornellà district of the city. They say the man intended to attack police officers. And here in Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has held a meeting with the security chiefs hours after suspected Boko Haram militants killed 19 people in an attack on a village in Borno State. The strike in Malari area has been described as the latest blow to Abuja's efforts to guarantee security in the northeast ahead of next year's presidential elections. Locals are blaming troops stationed in a nearby town of Gudumbali, who they allege failed to act when they were told that unknown gunmen were in the village 3 days before the incident. And now let's have a look at business news. President Donald Trump has told Reuters news agency that he does not expect much progress from trade talks with China this week in Washington. Trump said in an interview that he had no time frame for ending the trade dispute with China. The talks this week come as new U.S. tariffs on $16 billion of Chinese goods take effect, along with retaliatory tariffs from Beijing on an equal amount of U.S. goods. The U.S. Trade Representative's office also is holding hearings this week on proposals for tariffs on a further $200 billion of Chinese goods. Trump said Chinese negotiators would be arriving shortly, adding he did not anticipate much from the mid-level discussions. And shares in Tesla reversed course yesterday after spending most of the session in the red following a price target cut by JP Morgan to $195 from $308, putting it back where the investment bank's target stood before Chief Executive Elon Musk's now famous going private tweet. Adding to Tesla's woes over the weekend, Reuters reported that deep-pocketed Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund is in talks to invest in Lucid Motors Inc., which hopes to start making electric cars this year. The report cited people familiar with the matter. In a blog post last week, Musk detailed meetings with fund's representatives and said he was led to believe the fund could provide money for a going private deal. And Prince Cruises has revealed its 5th Royal class ship will be named Enchanted Princess. Due to launch in June 2020, Enchanted Princess will operate European voyages and will be a sister ship to Royal Princess, Regal Princess, Majestic Princess, and Sky Princess. Enchanted Princess will be followed by the debut of the 6th Royal class ship for Princess Cruises in 2021. The cruise line also has 2 new liquefied natural gas-powered ships on order to be delivered in late 2023 and spring 2025, bringing its new ship order to 5 ships in 6 years. Construction of the Enchanted Princess will take place in the Fincantieri Monfalcone shipyard, with the ship set to feature an evolution of the design platform used for the cruise line's existing Royal-class ships. We're headed to a short break now, but do stay with us. Sports and entertainment are coming up next.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Then think Zenith, one of the biggest in Nigeria, with assets over $16 billion, listed among the 20 most influential brands in the world, and winner of Best Bank in Corporate Governance. The most customer-focused bank in Nigeria. A success built on 3 foundations, dedicated to people, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
There's an old saying in Nigeria, a single tree cannot make a forest. At First Bank, we started from humble beginnings, and with prudent management and bold acquisitions, we have grown to meet the needs of our customers throughout Nigeria and beyond. You first, First Bank.
Welcome back to Arise News Now. We're live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja, and I'm Folake Adesugba. Now let's have a look at the world of entertainment now. The star of Spike Lee's latest historical drama, Klansman John David Washington, has condemned corrupt people in the U.S. police force. Washington portrays police officers in 3 of his recent movies, Klansman, The Old Man and the Gun, and Monsters and Men, and went on ride-alongs with law enforcement as research. John David, the son of Hollywood legend Denzel Washington, said it's clear from his research that the community really does depend on the police force.
I mean, to be a part of this team, Spike Lee, Jordan Peele, true American history. Yeah, I'm very excited. Yeah, this has been great.
And obviously it's
I mean, it could be worse, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you kidding me? Spike Lee, legendary, man. This is crazy to be a part of. Anything he's done, I'm here for. I love his film. So, like, to be a part of this, and, you know, a lot of people seem to be receiving it well, and especially in France, they seem to get him out there. So I'm just happy for him. I'm happy to be able to sort of, I'm going to say campaign this thing, but talk about it. You know, people seem to want to talk about it. You know, I didn't call y'all up, you know what I'm saying? So it seems like people are responding to it positively. So it's been great. Well, I mean, personally, that's what I'm pleased about. That's kind of what I love cinema for, you know, to be able to get some of these messages across in an entertainment capacity. And you can laugh about some of the things that make you cry. You can cry about some of the things that are hysterical. So, you know, there's no one way to tell the truth is what I learned from the master of tone, which is Spike Lee. And in the process, that was true, and it's evident in the film. Like, there's just more than one way to get this message across. And the film didn't seem suggestive in any way. It kind of he lets the audience decide whoever the bad guy is. It's not like they're the bad guys, they're stupid, he's the hero. You know, there's somebody you can relate to in this film. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, I guess it's somewhat considered to be an antiquated way of talking, but that's what I loved about it. I was able to dive into this time period, to this point in time where people, they thought they were fly, they thought they were hip, you know, when they talk this way. Now, you know, as the kids say, it's lit nowadays. So I guess I felt more comfortable talking like that than the contemporary way of speaking now, I guess. So I guess none of it was weird. I'm into it. I don't know what that says about me, but I was definitely into it.
And Melania Trump is continuing her personal crusade against cyberbullying. During remarks at the Federal Partners in Bullying Prevention Cyberbullying Prevention Summit in Washington, D.C., the First Lady warned about the harm that can be caused by using social media. It's traditional for a First Lady to select an issue to campaign during her time in office. Melania's predecessor, Michelle Obama, tackled obesity and physical fitness, while Laura Bush focused on children's literacy. Melania Trump's decision to take on cyberbullying and appropriate social media use is a fitting choice for the digital era, but has been widely mocked by those who point to her husband's behavior on Twitter. Now, the Eagles' greatest hits album has moonwalked past Michael Jackson's Thriller to become history's best-selling album of all time. The band's album, Their Greatest Hits 1971 to 1975, is now certified 38 times platinum, which means sales and streams of the album have reached a whopping 38 million copies. This pushes Jackson's Thriller, which is 33 times platinum, to second place. The Eagles, who formed in the early 1970s, mastered the mix of rock and roll and country music, and the band's hits became part of the soundtrack of that decade. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1998 and received the Kennedy Center honor in 2016. Time for a look at sports now. Jurgen Klopp and his Crystal Palace counterpart Roy Hodgson gave the verdicts after Liverpool secured a 2-0 win in the English Premier League, courtesy of a goal in each half from James Milner and Sadio Mane.
Not a brilliant football game from us. We don't have to make it bigger than it is. We won it because we scored in two very decisive moments. That's good. It's for us a big step, because who watches us a little bit more often knows if we are not brilliant, we usually lose. And today we were not brilliant, but we still won. That is a nice, not completely new, but at least not often experienced situation for me.
We have to pick ourselves up after this disappointment, because it's a very frustrating and bitter defeat when you lose in a way like we lost today, where you will have to forgive me for saying what I feel, and that is that I don't think we gave away a penalty, and I don't think Liverpool deserved to be leading 1-0 at half-time thanks to a penalty.
And that's it for this edition of Arise News Now. Do stay with us, plenty more still ahead on the channel. I'm Folake Adesugba from the whole team here in Abuja and London. That's goodbye, and thank you for watching.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.